Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So I recently just finished doing Kaeya's Hangout, and it was a very good quest. Now, just to be clear, I'm not going to be spoiling that quest at any point in this video. I'll be talking about certain aspects of it, but they're not spoilers to the story itself. And it got me thinking after finishing it about the Hangout system in Genshin Impact, and the way the developers in Genshin choose to tell certain stories in the game. I read every single line of text in every single garbage piece of paper that's on the street. You see this piece of paper over here that tells the story of Babel? This paper talks about her, and they are spread across this entire area. I think there's 3 or 4 of them. I read every single piece of paper, everything I pick up, I always make sure to read it. If I don't read it from the game itself, I go read it from the wiki. And even though a player like me, who reads every single line of dialogue, not necessarily out of necessity, but rather out of curiosity, I do not think that Hangouts are a good system. And one of the main reasons that is the case is because a lot of them tend to be extremely drawn out, extremely boring, and extremely repetitive for one reason or another. I will give you the example of Chongyun. When you do Chongyun's Hangout, even though there are several different endings to it, 6 in fact, a lot of the ways you get back into those endings is through similar choices, and that is fine. I get that. The point of Hangouts is to have multiple different variations, and in fact that is a virtue, but at the same time, there are certain points where you restart the quest where you have to go through a whole set of dialogue that you already went through in order to get the option where you can diverge into the other ending. And that really sucks. And that makes Hangouts, it makes them tedious for a lot of players. And from what I've seen, from my experience, I'm not the only one who thinks that is the case. Many players do not like Hangouts. And I get why that is the case. Also, something else about Hangouts, and this is kind of apparent with Barbara's, many of them tend to not really go anywhere. They seem to just tell you a nice... It's not even a dating simulator, because when it was first released or first revealed, people thought that it was going to be a dating simulator. It's not even that. This is quite literally just going out with your friend, well, not friends, going out with your in-game characters that you like. I don't want to call them friends because they're not. These are not real characters. These are just fake characters that do not exist. Even if you like them, they do not exist. Their feelings do not matter. So a lot of people don't care, and I get that. And sometimes even I do not care. I do not care what Layla thinks about me. I do not care what Layla, even though I think Layla is a good character, I really don't care what she does in her daily life. And that is a very big problem when it comes to Hangouts. They don't go anywhere. They sometimes try to go somewhere, but they don't really go, and they can't really go anywhere. They cannot really build upon anything, because at the end of the day, there are 6 different endings, and if one of them goes somewhere, it invalidates the other endings, because the other endings are not going to be canon, if you get what I'm trying to say. One ending is going to invalidate the others if it is canon. And logically speaking, all of them are canon, because they don't really go anywhere, so it doesn't really matter. So if you do the Hangout, and then you meet Layla in the future of the game, it doesn't matter which ending you went for, because at the end of the day, they are all practically the same. You get what I'm saying here? And that is one of the other problems that I find with Hangouts. Unfortunately, this is not one that can be fixed. This is a built-in system into multi-choice, multi-ending mechanics, and it would introduce a lot of problematic variables if the developers were to make every single ending canon in some way, shape, or form. And finally, the last big problem that I have with Hangouts is that they tend to have a lot of bloated and extremely dragged and monotonous dialogue. And that is a double-edged sword that stabs you on both sides, by the way. The issue here is that on one hand, you have to go through all of the bloated dialogue that is unnecessary on one certain divergence point in order to get the other ending that you want, which makes it very bad to play. And on the other hand, the bloated dialogue while you are playing, even if you are getting a certain ending, is going to make players feel bad. It doesn't feel good to play. It feels like doing the laundry. And this issue is an exacerbated version of what we see in certain story quests. Because a lot of the time, these bloated dialogues come from NPCs that are not playable characters. Now, I need to make this very clear to anyone watching. I do not hate NPCs in story quests. Because if you remember in Sinnoh's story quest, there was an NPC called Taj. And if you did Sinnoh's story quest, you know how important Taj is to that story quest, how good of a character Taj was, and generally speaking, how much influence Taj had on Sinnoh himself and on Sinnoh's personal growth as a character. That is a very good NPC. But sometimes what Hangouts tend to do is they introduce random ass NPCs no one cares about that tells you a certain story, which is fine, but then after doing that, they start to tell you about their uncle who went to the military and then found a scarab and became friends with that scarab, and that scarab turned out to be one of King Deshret's servants, and they dragged the story to a whole different stratosphere that no one asked about. That being said, there is another side to this equation. There is another way to look at Hangouts, and that is through the lens of good Hangout story quests, which are rare, but they do exist. Now, out of all of these, I think that the two really good ones that actually tell you certain very major events that will take place in the story later on are, let me see. Am I missing anything? No, I do not think so. So the only ones that actually foreshadow major events are Sayu's Hangout. Yes, I know many of you are surprised, but Sayu's Hangout, and let me see if I can find which one exactly. Oh, this ending in particular, where Sayu tells you about her master, who, like Varka, went on an expedition to an unknown location, undisclosed location, which means that Sayu's Hangout hints at Sayu's master, who is going to be a future character in the game, and that is very cool. I mean, we're not guaranteed to get him as a future character, but potentially. And the other ones are potentially Faruzan's Hangout. It is actually pretty good in certain areas. It does tell a good story, but it does not actually foreshadow anything major in the game. But this gets me to the main reason I made this video. And that is Kaeya's Hangout. Kaeya's Hangout is a masterpiece. It is not just one of the best hangouts in the game. In fact, it is undisputably the best hangout in the game. But it is also one of the best stories that is written, playable stories in the entire game. This virtually highlights all of the good things that Hangouts can introduce into Genshin Impact, and it makes them, or rather it implements them in the best ways possible. Because what this Hangout does, through its various different endings, is it tells you 5 different stories that what these stories do is they foreshadow certain events that will take place in the future through their endings, and they are an allegory to certain events that take place in the past. This Hangout quest tells you details about the Sustainer of Heavenly Principles. It tells you details about Piero. It tells you details about the king of Conria at the time, and they do it very well. Because while they are telling you those details through the different endings, they improve Kaeya's character and they expand on Kaeya's character, and a lot of the thematic things that are dealt with in this Hangout quest have to do with fate. Because across every single one of these endings, Kaeya has something to do with fate, and it seems like Kaeya himself is challenging fate. In fact, there is someone in China at Hoyoverse's HQ who wrote this story quest, and that guy or that woman, they are a legend. I have nothing but respect to them. They made one of the best quests in the entire game in terms of foreshadowing for the future and in terms of an allegory or an analogy for the past. Very well written. And that shows you that Hangouts do have potential. Now, I will warn you, there is a very big chance if you do not like Hangouts, you're not gonna like this. But if you are someone who enjoys the lore, then yes, this does actually reveal certain major things that will take place in the future. With Barbatos, with the Sustainer of Heavenly Principles, and with Piero. this hangout is so good that it actually got me into starting another theory. And if you liked my previous lore theory that I released about the 7 elements, then this one is going to be a lot better. Overall, I think this is a very good hangout. I hope that other hangouts in the future are going to be this good in terms of foreshadowing and analogy potential. But unfortunately, the reality is, the sad reality is, this hangout was most likely carried by Kaeya because Kaeya himself is such a good character. And this brings me to the final point that I'm trying to make in this video. Should all hangouts be hangouts? Certain hangouts in the game, like Kave's hangout, they can be boiled down and reduced into one single story quest. Which makes me wonder and think, why the hell did Kaeya get a hangout quest when they could have saved voice acting resources, saved the players time, and saved themselves money, and then just made it a story quest? It's that simple. It doesn't really, this hangout doesn't really tell you that much through the various different endings. It just wastes your time to tell you basically a bunch of random information about Kaeya and his mother. And it could have been made into a story quest, that's what I'm saying. And again, certain hangouts do not need to exist. Do I think that certain 5-star characters could use hangouts? Yes, I do. Some 5-star characters would benefit heavily from hangouts if they are done, if they are implemented similarly to Kaeya's hangout, where again, they tell you very significant information about the future of the game, and or at least tell you analogies about the past, like Kaeya's hangout does. Again, extremely good hangout, and Genshin Impact's lore as a game is one of the best ever out of any fictional story that I've ever read. The world building and the lore, once you actually get to think about it and realize how good and how well written it is, and how much inspiration it takes from various different things across human history, it is incredibly good. Unfortunately, the written story, the playable story, sucks. I cannot believe that the same company that produces such good lore is also the same people who wrote the story quest for Nilou and the story quest for Yaemiko. It is sad. But yeah. Now, do keep in mind, I have not done the Fontaine Archon quest. Please do not spoil it in the comments. Not for me. Don't spoil it for other people. If I see spoilers, the comments are getting deleted. That is all I have to say. The main purpose of this video was really to spark conversation and to get to know your opinions. I want to know what you guys think about hangouts, what you guys think about story quests. Do you think certain hangouts need to be, or not need to be, but certain hangouts should have been story quests? And do you think certain 5-star characters could use well-written hangouts that tell or foreshadow certain events in the future? Let me know in the comments what you think. That is all I have to say for now. Again, Kaeya's hangout is going to start a whole new theory about Piero, the sustainer of heavenly principles, and the king of Khaenri'ah, but I will not spoil the details of that theory. You'll know when it comes out. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next time.